the Reds, it is Talking Reds. I'm very pleased to say that our guest on today's Talking Reds is Clive Tyldesley, a face and a voice that I'm sure you all know. Champions League finals, World Cups, the Euros, computer games. It's hard to have avoided Clive over the years. And we're delighted to have him on. As I say, just to start off, Clive, I mean, as I'm saying there, you've seen it all in football. Your career, taking you to different cities, to different places, doing commentaries with, well-known figures and all the rest of it. Obviously, this current situation is something none of us have seen before, and, a horrible pandemic, a terrible situation. But football, nevertheless, still trying to crack on, still trying to plan for the future. Lots of different debates about the direction it should go, how things should be decided. I just wondered, first of all, what your general thoughts have been on it all, football-wise.
Well, Jurgen's nailed it. It is, the least important of the most important of the least important things. And I don't know that was an original thought of his, but it's become a mantra of sanity, really. I think for a lot of people who are trying to come to terms with something that we don't understand, let alone having had any experience of before. I mean, I'm part of the football industry. The garden you can see behind is paid for by football, by people's interest in football. And at the moment, I'm not earning because I'm not commentating on football. But I am a step away from the view that people have of football when really 90% of it is supporting their team. I genuinely don't support a club team. Who do I support? Probably England, who maybe ITV's most important contract. Gareth was at our wedding, so I'm supporting a mate and supporting my country, but I don't have that club affiliation that I once had. So I do take a step back from football, and I do see the game and the sport. And I think Jurgen said something else, actually, funny enough, in the last week, that it was a sport before it was a spectacle. It is the football that's important, the playing of the football. And it's great to see professional players kicking around again on a field in Germany. It's a long way removed from the experience that we all know so well. But it is the game that's important. And if we can get those talents back out on the field somehow, just to entertain us, then I think that'll be a step forward.
And you mentioned the Bundesliga there, Clive, and that does seem to sort of light the way for other European leagues now. The league is stepping up in Spain. Obviously, the Premier League meetings going on all the time, but they still seem to be aiming for something, June, maybe the back end of June, more likely than the middle of June now. I don't know if you tuned in to watch the Bundesliga, but I did myself, and I just thought, yes, it was the football, as Jurgen talked about, but it was missing some of the sights and the sounds that we're obviously used to. And I just wondered, with you being a commentator for all these years as well, how much does the setting come into the story of it all, and how much of a part do the fans play for you as a professional working in the game who's talking about what you're seeing unfold in front of you?
The fans are professional football. The sport is essentially an amateur sport. It's the world's sport. It's played all over the world. It was a sport before it was a spectacle. But as a professional business, it's an entertainment business. And the entertainment is provided for the supporters. And they, in turn, provide an atmosphere, a sense of theatre, which we're going to be without for a long time to come. I mean, television plays a big part now in the business of football, as we're finding out during some of the negotiations, because television's having its say. When clubs say, we want to do away with the relegation, TV is saying, no, that's no jeopardy in the games. The games are no good to us. We pay for these games. We want proper competitive football matches to be played. And, I understand that line of thinking, but it won't feel the same. It's going to change the role of the TV commentator a little bit, that's for sure. The big difference between radio and television commentary, the single biggest difference, and I do a little bit of both now, is you're not as important in a television commentary. You can pause, you can give yourself thinking time, you have that luxury to try to choose your words. The thinking time sounds a little bit stark and eerie when there's nobody in the stadium. So, I think football commentary on television has become more conversational anyway. I'm not sure that I've liked that trend, but maybe it's a trend that is going to have to develop in an era when actually people often say TV commentators talk too much, and I think that's probably been the case. But maybe it is going to have to become more of a Fletch and Macca type conversation commentary, just to make it comfortable to watch and listen to.
Yeah, that is one of the challenges, isn't it, Clive? Because I think, when I'm watching a game of football on the television ordinarily, there are times where the camera will pan round onto the crowd or immediately after a goal scored, you're watching the celebration, but you're also watching how the crowds are reacting. You're watching the limbs flying everywhere. And that doesn't necessarily need a line from the commentator right at that moment, does it? You can come in, but almost those, as you say, those pictures speak 1,000 words almost. And that was one of the things I found so odd about watching the Bundesliga at the weekend. Just, Haaland in the corner, celebrating by himself, doing a little dance. And it just all looked a little bit daft when there was no crowd there. His teammates had to sort of distance from him and couldn't hug him and jump all over him like they would ordinarily. And I guess, as you say, we're just going to have to sort of get used to it because this is the reality. But it will present challenges for people in your profession as well, won't it? Because, that isn't the ordinary way that you would go about talking about a match, as you say, because, those eerie sounds, those ghostly sounds aren't really great for the spectacle.
No, and I often get asked favorite ground, favorite commentary position, and so on and so forth, best atmosphere, and actually the two tend to go together. I'm just saying this. It is great to commentate a Champions League game at Anfield. It is great to commentate a Champions League game at Celtic Park. It does. It feels different in with a different kind of atmosphere. So yeah, I think perhaps the most heartening element of the debate has been that the self-interest that has very, very quickly reared its head with regards to the completion of the Premier League season. And it must anger Liverpool fans more than anybody. You kind of hope that everything is going to come out of this differently. Every business in the world, and you kind of thought that we might come out of this a little bit differently. We might come out with a little bit more appreciation for the role that essential services play in our lives, etc., etc. The Thursday night clap might become a weekly occurrence, even when some kind of normality returns. The normality is returning to the Premier League and lots of votes. And needing 14 votes to try to carry something. And I try to be as sympathetic as I can, as I think a journalist should be, with every viewpoint. But when I hear dear Mr. Purslow talking about what if our best players catch coronavirus, well, I'm sorry, that's football. There are lots of things that are going to be different. It isn't actually very different from a flu bug in the camp, in any other circumstances. It happens. Liverpool have played games in the last 18 months with a couple of midfield players and centre back. Sometimes you can have 3 or 4 of the better centre backs in the Premier League, but they all happen at the same time. Get on with it. That's what you do. Liverpool might still be in the Champions League, but for the fact that their first choice goalkeeper was injured for the second leg against Atletico, that's life. So when life is so much different than it was, you'd think there has to be a little bit of give and take just so we can try to get the show back on the road. I don't understand the whole argument about, well, we've got to finish the season by then so we can get to the schedule. Every other business in the world has got to pick up where it left off. The money that you spent in your home life between August and March, you can't suddenly go to the bank and say, well, we can forget all about that now, can't we? I mean, I'll get all that back, won't I? No, you've got to pick up where you are. You might have lost your job. You might have lost a relative. I mean, this has changed everything, but we all get on with it where we last were. And particularly when the season's 3/4 completed, I don't understand the argument that, well, we'll forget about the season or we'll call it what it is now just so we can start again in August. Change next season. Don't change this season. This season's ongoing. Are we saying to all the people that have paid money to go and watch all the games at Anfield or Goodison or anywhere, Prenton Park, anywhere, that actually will keep your money for those games, but they didn't matter? You're actually watching testimonial matches, where they were just friendly games, really. You can't do that. You can't stop where we are and forget any of it happened. And I'm not just saying this because I'm on the Anfield route. I mean, what if you're a Barrow fan or whatever, Leeds United fan? I'm sorry, too much of the season has already been played. I mean, are Liverpool back in Champions League now? Are they back in the FA Cup? No, they're not. No, they got knocked out of those. So that's. I think when they start to play competitive football, presumably behind closed doors, I think they pick up where they left off. They play to the end of the season, and then see. And I know that there are some complications with player contracts and transfer windows and so on. They're minor detail. They can work that out. But from a competitive point of view, people talking about the validity of the competition, that it's not valid if you can't play your home games in front of, or you got to play in the new. No, they're football matches. You play 38 of them. We add up the points and we see who came first and we see who came 20th. Then we can move on to the next season. I just think that's logical. I don't actually see the argument against any of that.
Yeah, and as you say, an unprecedented situation. So the sort of sport and integrity arguments for me is the thing that's null and void, and all this. People talking about null and void, but no one saw this coming. No one knew this was going to happen, and every team has to accept that this is the circumstance and this is where we move forward from here. Just in terms of an insight into what you do, Clive, we've seen bits and bobs on your Instagram during lockdown. You've been doing quizzes. We see extensive notes when you're talking about the quizzes. Also, some brilliant comedy material, I have to say, as well. Really enjoyed the commentating on your wife's cooking and all that kind of stuff. So all that's worth a look if you haven't seen that. But I just wondered, about your research and when you're looking into, the story around the game and everything else. Do you think now, if you were asked to do a game tomorrow and you knew it was going to be behind closed doors, are you going to be doing something different to what you would do ordinarily? Are you going to be thinking, I've got more time to fill, so I need a bigger backstory here, or where would you go with it, do you think?
The answer is probably I don't know. I don't think I'd prepare anything different. I think it's interesting watching the Bundesliga. I only watched the first 15 minutes of the first game on BT Sport on Saturday and the build-up to it. And I was kind of anticipating a little bit more information about the circumstances. I think it was good that they brought everybody up to date with the Bundesliga season so far, so we had a better understanding of the context of the game we were watching. That was important. You've got to introduce the players in a little bit more detail because we're less familiar with them than we might otherwise be, and it's difficult. They were commentating obviously from the UK, obviously from their homes. They're not getting that information of a late team change and stuff. So there are going to be some teething problems. But I think other than trying to add some extra information to the restrictions and limitations on players and the staff and who actually is in the stadium, how many people are there, whether there's been any security outside to stop fans gathering and so on. Apart from adding that kind of information, I think my prep would be the same as usual, and then we just have to try to get a feel. Maybe it has been suggested if there is a commentator in the stadium, he or she will be on their own. They won't be able to have a co-commentator or reporter with them. So it may work out better for the TV companies to actually do these off tube, as we say, either from a studio or even from a home setting. But and talking about social media, I tell you what, Liverpool have been terrific. It's again, I'm not just saying this because I'm on the Anfield Wrap, and club football's very tribal, and there'll be a lot of ABLs out there, anybody but Liverpool's, just as there are, anybody but United or whatever. But I think if you are such a thing as a neutral, it's a very easy team to like. That there don't seem to be Sadio and Mo had a bit of a spat over passing the ball. The club got the furlough thing wrong, and then changed their mind. But from the top, right through the club, and I'm talking up to Peter, beyond Jurgen. The very, very good use of Twitter. I mean, even those NAF Nivea adverts were kind of endearing, and clearly Hendo's a proper leader on and off the field. I think he's got a sense of responsibility, social responsibility. I think he's got a lot of Stevie's personality in that respect. Kind of knows where everything stands. He's obviously been at the forefront of this move, among Premier League players. But the Zoom sessions are either they're the best actors in the world or they all like each other. Yeah. They all like being with each other, and they certainly play like that. They certainly play with a team ethic. But the personalities, it's just the balance of the squad. From my early days in Radio City, I remember it is kind of important at a club like Liverpool that there are some local lads in the squad and in the team, if possible. And Trent gives you that kind of involvement, that connection with the guys on the cot. Love the mural that you guys sort of put together for him, or in his honour. But even the ones that have come from far and wide just seem to have got Liverpool. The manager's got Liverpool. They've got the culture that I got when I came as an outsider to join Radio City in 1977. And it takes you a little while to get used to it because, I'm a Manc, really. I'm from Bury. But the thing that I guess Shanks built when he, I suppose, recognized that suddenly the city had become the center of the world because of the music and everything, and just somehow harnessed that people talk about legacies in football. People talk about projects, big coaches with projects. The Shankly project's still going strong, and the team even plays with that kind of energy and hunger and pride, and that Shanks used to say a little bit cocky, a little bit of that too. And it must be really heartwarming for young Liverpool fans in particular. I'm very conscious. I went to Rome, where are we now, the season before last, and I remember seeing a big shot of the travelling fans celebrating. So many young fans. Yeah. So many guys in the mid-20s there had made that journey. And these are the guys who've had to listen to their dads and their uncles and their grandpas going on about Dalglish and St. John and goodness knows who else. And suddenly, you got your own Liverpool, your own team, your own winners, your own champions, your own European champions. And that is fantastic. But it must be really heartwarming, I think, for the older generation of Liverpool fans to see a club they can still recognise, a club that Kenny could be managing, a club that Shanks could be managing, a club that, St. John could be playing for, a club that Keegan could be playing for, a club that, Souness could be playing for. So that continuity and the fact that they come over as just a group of guys who like each other's company, like playing together, and are therefore likeable, represent football as well as Liverpool well. And it's been a real success, though. That's and in this time when social media has become so important, hats off to whoever's putting all that together, because it's been great.
Absolutely, it's been a big lift for everyone. That I think, and well said, Clive. We'll be back with Clive in a second. Just want to show you a quick clip of an Anfield Wrap show called "Finding a Footy Fix," which does what it says on the tin. And this one we were watching once in a lifetime which was the extraordinary story of the New York Cosmos, a 2006 documentary and film. The idea behind this, as I say, is we pull out a documentary, we talk about it, we recommend whether you should watch it or not. Here is a clip from Finding a Footy Fix. Some of the executives that are featured, you know, they're not big lovers of football, as Mo says, and that's really obvious. But nevertheless, I think that the story of them is like really interesting and really intriguing, and the interviews are really good, and what they get out of them is really good. And also, you know, you can tell that once upon a time they were all together, and then it all fell away, and they all fell out, and they've all got slightly different stories. But like whoever's, you know, doing the interview, and you never see them, but they're obviously throwing, like they've gone back to you, Connor, saying, and Kev said this, and you're going, well, Kev can fuck off. Do you know what I mean? And it's brilliant. It's brilliant the way they sort of captured those bits of it. And there's a quote, I can't remember the fella's name now, but I was on the floor laughing at this. You know, he's talking about that he didn't know soccer, didn't know football, and he says, "I never knew what a header was. I thought great head was something else."
He's great, that fella.
It was madness. Do you know what? I never knew Warners were involved with any of this. I never knew until I watched the documentary that it was literally the people who were putting on movies. You know, you had the money man who was in one side trying to put together a movie with Dustin Hoffman, and the boys rang up and says, "Here, by the way, get in the plane. You're fucking off to Brazil because you have to get Pele over here." And your man's going, "Sorry, what?" I was literally just having the crack with Dustin Hoffman there now, trying to get this movie of his sorted. And then it just keeps building and building and building. It's madness. And it's reflected on the field. It does a full, and I'm not going to ruin the entire sort of story straight away, but the quality of the football on the field, kind of, when it eventually gets going, it's almost Hollywood-esque. It's, yeah, go on, you boy, and, you know, they start winning, and then it goes full circle. And it's a bit, you know, I don't want to quote Harvey Weinstein here, but it's kind of like watching his business dissolve, you know. And from a Hollywoodism, that's the way it all went. And it's crackers. It's utterly crackers. And the Pele deal, I don't think you would get a deal in the Premier League. Jesus, even the top 5 clubs would just about be offering a deal like that. If even, maybe the top 3, what Pele got. What did he end up? Sort of anywhere between sort of 2.7 million and maybe 5 million for his couple of years there. And the best thing about it was they all had a different number in their head. Nobody. It was like, one was clearly not telling the other one about the record deal, about the boot deal, about the association deal. And you're going, this is madness. And this is why this documentary is awesome.
Okay, that is a clip from Finding a Footy Fix. If you fancy a look at that, download the Anfield Wrap app. You can get some tokens on there and you can have a go of it for free. And if you like it, please do subscribe. Back with Clive Tyldesley. And you mentioned before, Clive, that, you know, you did work at Radio City from April 1977, staying there for 12 years, working as the sports editor, covering Everton and Liverpool, covering some big moments in the history of both clubs and that kind of thing. What are your abiding memories, if you like, of working in the city, the big moments for you during that job?
Well, I lived in Wirral on the Wirral, never quite sure which it is, right the way through to 92, 77 to 92. So I moved down to London to join the BBC. So my daughter was born at Arrow Park. Son's a big Liverpool fan, very big Liverpool fan. Been in the away end a couple of times with him in the last 18 months, which is an experience, but fun. So yeah, my attachment to the football club and to the city, to the area, as an outsider, I've always found it very welcoming. You know, people, and by the way, I was at Radio City through a very interesting time in the city's modern history. I mean, I covered football, obviously, that's what I wanted to do. And, saw European Cups won and World Club Championships lost mainly. But I actually traveled to Tokyo with the team. And a lot of them were the same age as me then. I've often said the 86 FA Cup final, I think in many ways is the biggest football match I've ever commentated on. A, because the FA Cup was really, really big at the time, and the two clubs had fought out the title race tooth and nail. But I knew everybody on the field. They're all my mates. they were playing against each other for the biggest prize in the game, really, at the time. And they're all my pals. They were all guys that, I go to the Continental with after on a Saturday night. So, and I'm really, really close friends to this day. Extraordinary people. Ray Clements, very close to. Who's not had the best of health in recent years, but an incredible fighter, wonderful personality. And that, they all came out of that era. And being on Merseyside, being a part of Radio City. Shanks had his own chat show when I arrived at the station. We had Macintosh, Duncan McKenzie and John Toshack had their own program together. And I'd just the same age, know a lot of the families. Obviously, I was in Brussels. I wasn't at Sheffield, funny enough, but I had met two people who didn't come home and was very close to the club and heavily involved in the aftermath of the disaster. So, and I'm sorry to hear that City Talk has gone. I mean, I think the local radio is what it is today. Back then, it was a voice. And not only did I cover football, I covered a general election for Radio City, which Thatcher won. I covered a local election, which some form of a Labour Party won, but not a Labour Party that you recognise, which basically Derek Hatton and these guys won. I covered a Pope's visit. I covered Shanks's funeral. They're amazing days. Toxteth riots. Just extraordinary days. These two huge football disasters and so much success. Amazing time in my life, and the radio station, both City and Merseyside, were very central to. It's where people turn, that and the Echo. People turn to those three sources really for their news, and so much of that news was being made within 10 miles of where they lived. So they were really extraordinary days, and actually, personalities have come out of the radio stations. Billy Butler and Pete Price and all these guys. They're local celebrities. They're kind of as much a part of the heritage of the city in many ways as I don't know, a Holly Johnson or a Ken Dodd or like Jodie Comer and Steve Graham now, like absolutely at the top of their professions, brilliant actors. That's Liverpool. That's it.
And you touched on the sort of the changing media landscape there, and once upon a time, as you say, everyone leaned on the Echo and Merseyside and City. There's now, seemingly so many different sources that you can get your information from, and perhaps that's one of the reasons that we do see things changing. So from 2015, City stopped commentating on Liverpool and Everton games. Now City Talk, as you mentioned, is going, and sad news for us as well at the Anfield app, because we did have a show on City Talk, and that was a big part of our story in terms of giving us a boost, telling us, Steve had us all brilliant to us, telling us that we could go on and make something of what we were doing here, and that's been the case, and Steve supported us all the way through. But I just wondered, from your experience broadcaster, Clive, where do you see radio's role going really, and especially in terms of sport, in terms of football, because it does seem a little bit strange to me. I haven't got all the economics in front of me or anything like that, but as we've been talking, Liverpool's such a football mad city. You wonder, surely it could sustain it one way or another.
Yeah, the club's pretty international though now, isn't it, Gareth? I mean, national, international. People always used to sort of make jokes about Manchester United fans in Surrey. There's quite a few Liverpool fans in Surrey now. There's certainly a lot in Norway and wherever, Singapore, wherever you want to look. That comes. Look at the ownership of the club to start with. So I think local. Listen, the Echo's great, and it's one of my first sort of places of reference when I'm doing a Liverpool game. But I'm looking online. Obviously, I'm not getting newsprint on my fingers anymore. So, but the association between when I started at Radio City, we travelled on the team coach, Everton and Liverpool. But let's say myself, Eddie Hemmings, Merseyside, Michael Charters from the Echo, Horace Yates from the Daily Post. We'd stayed in the team hotel. We travelled back on the coach. We were part of the match day squad almost. You know, it didn't last for that long after I joined. I think it'd probably been discontinued by 1980, something like that. But that's where we were then. And every national newspaper had a Merseyside man. But now everything is more national. I'm doing some commentaries now this season for TalkSport, really enjoying it. I think they're, a viable rival to 5 Live, which I think is good, just healthy. I think that they're gaining more and more credibility. They're not kind of up themselves. They broadcast to the fan, to the common man, which, they're kind of tabloid in nature. Nothing wrong with that. That's what communication's all about, knowing your audience and commentating to them. And so there are all kinds of issues around the power of broadcasting. The association between broadcasting and the gambling industry at the moment is a question which quite rightly is being debated. When I do a TalkSport commentary, I'm making references to odds and stuff, and I try to take that responsibility seriously. I don't just recite the Be Gamble Aware mention that we're required to do. I draw people's attention to the website and what's on it and so on, and try to actually mean it rather than just read it. So, but again, it's an association which both radio and television are probably going to have to address in the coming years. So they're changing times. The consumption of media changes by the day. We've got 3 guys in their 20s, and if they're at home, which isn't very often, and there's a game on, they don't watch with Dad on the sofa. Thank goodness. They go down the pub, and they don't come back talking about the commentary because they haven't heard it. People are consuming football in different ways, in bite sizes. Who would have thought that the Anfield Wrap would be the size that it's become? With sort of shows abroad, and I did one up in Scotland with the guys last year, which was great fun. Cara's on it, Tom Kitchen's on it. I mean, it is. You are now, you're now the new local radio station, really, for Liverpool FC. So, don't shed too many tears for Radio City, because it's you. You'll be doing commentaries next, and if you need a commentator.
Well, on that, Clive, because I'm glad you said that, me and my friends have always found, I'm in my 40s, so I am used to radio commentaries. I am used to match of the day. I consume my football in that way, and yourself. And so I've got key moments in Liverpool history, big moments. I always remember the commentaries. So do my mates. One in particular of my mates can recite all kinds of commentaries. Just because that's how he remembers to go.
You can get tablets for that. I can give him a prescription for that.
But I just wondered, you're someone who's in that game, and you must love it. You've done it all this time. What commentators did you admire, and what commentaries stick in your head as being big moments?
Well, funny enough, I'm writing my book at the moment. What am I doing during lockdown? I'm writing that book. It's not an autobiography. It's a book about football views and views on broadcasting and the great people that I've been fortunate enough to meet through both. So I've done a lot of thinking about that, and there's a chapter in there called Reg, which is about the late Reg Guttridge, who was my broadcast mentor. Didn't ask him to be. He was self-appointed. He got on my case. We just got on great. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. He taught me so much about the journalism in broadcasting. There's a chapter in there called Summerall, Pat Summerall. If any of the guys are looking in like their NFL, maybe sadly not with us anymore either, but a great. And if the straight man to John Madden on the NFL commentary is my favourite commentator. So the things that I've learned from them, I succeeded a guy called Brian Moore, who was just the most wonderful man as ITV's commentator. I learn a lot from him. So it's all about communication, Gareth. It's just about knowing your place, identifying your audience, trying to serve your audience best you can. And that audience changes. It changes between radio and TV. It changes between a Europa League game on a Thursday tea time to, 200,000 people on BT Sport, to a World Cup semi-final live on ITV to 28 million people. It's a different audience, and you've got to tailor your commentary accordingly. And it's nice to be a little part of people's memories of some of those occasions, because 99% of people who watch a football match are watching on TV or on a tablet of some kind, on a screen of some kind. And so you are a little part of their recollections and, those hello, here we go moments. It's great when people quote them back to you. Actually, another little plug. I'm actually going to make available for purchase prints of 10 of my kind of most famous commentary games coming up. So you better actually buy a print of the charts framed from Istanbul and indeed from Madrid. So they'll be online very, very soon.
Brilliant. Look out for them. Well, just to finish up, Clive, as well. I mean, I can remember back to the days that, I was doing little bits of work experience and stuff like that. I actually managed to get a little session at Radio City, and I remember, straight away being amazed that I was in the same room as Kevin Keatons and Graham Beecroft, because they were people I listened to all the time on the radio. And I remember saying to Graham then, as a young lad, I'd love to be a commentator, Graham, any tips? And I still remember some of the things he said to me, but I know you do a lot of mentoring and stuff with colleges and stuff like that, Clive. So I just wondered, what's the advice you give to the budding journalists of today?
Well, I've got lots of advice, and I've got no advice, if you know what I mean. I can talk about my profession, my trade, and my thoughts on it for hours. But ultimately, when I listen to tapes of wannabe commentators, and the big message really is bring yourself to the party. By all means, listen to other commentators. You should be consuming all media analytically, critically, if that's where you want to be. It's like a vacation. You've got to want to be in it. So you should be, you shouldn't be able to watch a news bulletin. I throw things at the screen about 5 minutes into every news bulletin I watch. I'm the same with dramas and everything. It's my business. So I watch it from a critical. I'm a real pain in the arse to watch a drama with. And so you can imagine what a bitch I am when somebody else is commentating. But I am always trying to be constructive and try to analyze and try to listen and try to see what I can still learn. But of all the people like Summerall and Reg Gutteridge that I learned from, I can only take the bits of theirs that I like. I mustn't copy. You mustn't copy anybody. Don't copy. Take the bits you like, but then bring your own personality to the fore. And that's the most important thing, because it's a relationship that you have. These people, the viewers, the listeners, they're inviting you into their homes, onto their commute, into their cars, wherever. They can turn you off if they don't like you. So you've got to strike up a relationship with them. And warmth is the greatest quality of any television broadcaster. I can guarantee your favorite presenters on TV are people who you don't know, but you feel like you know them. You feel like you could have a pint with them and enjoy their company. And I'm very lucky. I'm always name dropping, but I know Declan Donnelly, I know Bradley Walsh, I know Dermot O'Leary. They're exactly who you would hope they would be. They are that guy. They are great, great guys. And now, when they look into the little black hole of the camera, somehow they're able to present their personalities through the technology and into wherever you're watching them. And that's the magic of good broadcasting. That's the knack of it, if you can do it, but you can only be yourself.
Great advice, Clive. Good stuff. And thanks very much again for coming on this morning and speaking to us.
Can I just say one other thing, just interested in what you said
What's
about Radio City and going down? This is pretty serious stuff now. I'm going to finish with. Sorry, I'm not leaving you with a smile here. After about 4 days after the disaster, I was working for Radio City, and I was in the car park at Anfield. We were kind of waiting for regular announcements, and we were aware that quite a lot of the families of the bereaved were gathering at the stadium and were being welcomed into the players' lounge there. And actually, the players, I mean, these young men, talented young men with absolutely no experience whatsoever in any kind of counselling, were being asked to sit with families and try to just talk. And a message came out to the press pack in the car park, and it was for me. And Kenny wanted to see me, and my immediate reaction, oh God, what have I said? And I walked into the reception area at Anfield there, which is pretty much the same now as it was then. And Kenny was waiting, and he said, Ian Whelan? And I said, what? He said, Ian Whelan. He said his parents, Ronnie and Vera here, and his sister, he wanted to be a commentator. He's shown him around Radio City twice. And I'm still, dumb, numb, whatever, probably a bit of both. Yeah, so I kind of remember him, yeah. He died on Saturday. Oh, okay. So I was then ushered in to the room where the fans, the bereaved families were being counselled by Roddy Whelan and Ian Russian. And I sat down with the Whelan family. They wanted to talk to me. And it just kind of makes you realise all these years on, these were just ordinary people. I mean, okay, they were Liverpool fans, and they're in the hearts of Liverpool fans and Liverpool people, because a lot of them came from Merseyside, and we've all been to the games, and we always come home. That's what we do. Might come home drunk, might come home late, but we come home. They didn't come home. Ian Whelan was, I think, 15, 16 years of age. He wanted to be me. He wanted to be a football commentator, just like you did, Gareth. To see. I showed him around Radio City a couple of times. That's what he wanted to be, and he went to a football match and he didn't come home.
Yeah, terrible stuff. But thanks again, Clive, for coming on, sharing your memories, giving tips as well. And it's been fantastic. That has been Talking Reds. As I say, I do recommend that you go and follow Clive on social media as well. He is engaging with that and engaging with it in a good manner. And if you're interested in following in Clive's footsteps, take a look at those notes. That has been Talking Reds with Clive.
Okay, guys, stay safe.